A woman came into church one morning, and this lady came up to her and gave her a great big hug and just then left. However, you have to understand, this woman is someone who ignored her and snubbed her every other Sunday morning. She came up and gave her a hug and just walked away. So the woman was curious of why this lady came up and did that. Well, she got her answer at the end of the service when the pastor said this: "Great job on your assignment last week. Let's continue with that. Next week, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to go up to someone and love them, love someone you can't stand." So she kind of got the idea of, okay, so I know this girl, this lady, doesn't like me because she came and hugged me. I hope that's not what happens here at Faith Bible Church. If only loving one another was that easy. Just go up, hug them, and leave. Okay, I did my part. But love is a little bit more difficult than that, I think we would all agree. You see, love requires constant effort, constant hard work. Because at the heart of loving others, you're putting other people in front of your needs. And if we're honest with one another, it is a huge battle because we worry about us and our needs and my wants and my desires. We want to go back to selfishness, not love. So this morning our text is 1 John chapter 3 in the New Testament, particularly John, the apostle of love, which we will learn. He was always reminding his brethren to love one another. So before we open our Bibles, I have actually an assignment for us this morning. Best way for us to show love for one another today, many times at church, week in and week out. The Parmer sit here, the Keatons sit there. I know that's why I talk to them when we turn around. Everyone has their spots at church, right? We come in, we kind of talk with the people in our sphere of influence, correct? In our sphere where we sit. So this morning I am going to just blow everyone away. If you can't move, you can't walk, you stay seated. If you're a visitor, you stay seated. Don't worry about it. For our members, I want you to change seats this morning. Take 1 minute and go. Go. Change seats now. Go. I know you're like, what's going on? The Lord's got to be coming back. I got to change seats this morning. Change seats. If you can't move, that is okay. You stay seated. You stay seated. Okay, quickly. Don't want to All right, find your seat. Find your seat. Find your seat. Now I'm going to be thrown all over the place. How are you? All right. So. Now, people in the back, there's not too many people in the back, so I'll only move one seat behind. Here's the reason why we did this morning. It's because we come into church each and every week, and we sit with the same people. And I'm with you. I sit there for reasons. I've been there for 15 years. But a lot of times we don't get to know one another in church. Because, why? We're just around the same people constantly. Would you agree with that? So I want us to open the 1 John chapter 3 now that we are in our seats for this morning. Now, next week you'll be back to know that's okay. That's okay. 1 John chapter 3, 11 through 18. Church, there's one thing I want us to understand today. It's going back to a fundamental principle, but it is about loving our brothers and sisters in Christ. Here's what the Apostle John says here in verse 11. For this is the message that you have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. We should not be like Cain, who was of the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own deeds were evil and his brother's righteous. Do not be surprised, brothers, that the world hates you. We know that we have passed out of death unto life because we love the brothers. Whoever does not love abides in death. Everyone who hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. Verse 16, by this we know him, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. So as we take these passages of Scripture on Sunday morning, we hermeneutically interpret, and as far as our interpretation, let's look and see who the author of this book is. And who was it? John. Very good. The Apostle John. John was a follower of Jesus. He was known as what? The beloved disciple, the apostle of love. But originally he was not that, was he? There is a description in the Gospels that calls him one of the sons of thunder. Now, can you imagine what that description meant for him? He was a fiery temper. Him and his brothers believed. Understand who was he? What was his occupation? He and his brother James were fishermen. Their dad was Zebedee. He owned a fishing business on the Sea of Galilee, and so this was his life. Now, if you ever watches the show Deadliest Catch, that's the lifestyle of several of our disciples. They were fishermen by trade. And so John, understand John, the apostle of love, before he met Jesus, before he was changed by Jesus, he was a man of a pretty fiery temper. If you see the account, and we'll turn there, Luke chapter 9 is the account of Jesus walking with his disciples to go to Jerusalem. And if you remember this story, they were walking to Samaria, and they had to cross through Samaria, and they would not let them pass through. And what did John say? Jesus, let us call fire down from heaven, and we will just burn them up. Sounds like the apostle of love, right? No. But Jesus touched his life. He followed Jesus. He was changed. He became known as the disciple of love. And after his conversion, everywhere he went brought calmness and peace. And people wanted him to stay. Love characterized his life. It was his message. And if we read through any of the Gospels, we read through 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, we can see that love is his message. History tells us, Father Jerome, who was a historian in the 1st, 2nd centuries, writes this about John. John, in his last days, as he was still attending and going to church gatherings, could not walk. And so they would carry him into a church gathering. Understand, they didn't say church service because the early church did not meet the way that we met. You understand that? They didn't have nice comfy chairs and music. They met in caves. They met in people's homes. That's what they did in the early church because of persecution. So John, at this meeting, he was so old and frail, they would carry him into the meeting. And then after every meeting, they would help him to his feet so he could give the last words of benediction to the church. And this is what he said every time they met. Church historians say, little children, let us love one another. Every time they met, he would stand up in his frail body. Little children, let us love one another. But guess what happened? Just like what would happen probably in the 21st century. What's Pastor John? All he does is repeat himself. He started complaining. That never happens in church, does it? It does. And so his disciples and the followers said, hey, Pastor John, why do you keep saying the same thing all the time? Little children, love one another. Here is his response. He says this, because it is the Lord's command, and if this only is done, it is enough. Do we love the brethren? Do we love each other? It's that Greek word, agapato, and here's the definition in the context of 1 John chapter 3. It means to have love for someone or something based on sincere appreciation and high regard. To love with affection, loving concern. That love that you would give yourself for someone. And we know we're going to get there who the perfect example of that was, and his name was who? I can't hear you. His name was Jesus. See, we say we love a lot of things. I love my dog. I love my cat. I don't know why people love cats. I'm just kidding. You have cats. I love cats too. It tastes like chicken, right? Someone just finally got it. I don't eat cat. I may have eaten cat in the Philippines and not known it, but not that I know. I love the Eagles, right? The Philadelphia Eagles. I love the Phillies. We love our sports teams. I love pizza. Somebody did it. If you're a young kid in here, young person, I love Fortnite. I love Xbox. I hope not. No. I love the beach. I I love my children. See, love is a very misunderstood word. I don't think that you would give your life up for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think you would give your life up for pizza. But we say, oh, maybe I would. But we say that word a lot, and we don't, I don't think, understand truly what we say. We love our brethren, what that means. It's like one woman wrote to her ex-fiance and said this, "Dearest Ben, no words can ever express the great unhappiness I've felt since breaking our engagement. Please say that you will take me back. No one could take your place in my heart." Oh, it's so sweet. So please forgive me. I love you forever. Yours forever, Ben. P.S. Congratulations for winning the state lottery. So we know, we say we love, sometimes there's ulterior motives, and it's not really truly agapao love, which we need to have. It's a sentimental feeling, it's sometimes a shallow emotion, but love, we know, is much more, is much deeper, and we can see that example through our Savior, Jesus Christ. So this morning, I want us to go through 4 points this morning, 4 points that are going to give us some idea of what true biblical love is. And they'll be on the screen behind me. So our first point this morning is this: biblical love thinks of others first. Biblical love thinks of others first. Well, John starts out in verse 12. He gives us an example of what not to do, of what love is not. Let's read that together. 1 John 3, verse 12, and it says this: "We should not be like Cain, who was the evil one and murdered his brother." And why did he murder him? Because his own deeds were evil and his brother's righteous. So what led Cain to kill his brother Abel? It starts with a J. What's the word? Jealousy. If we know this story, back in Genesis, we understand that Cain offered a sacrifice to God. Abel offered a sacrifice to God. God was honored and blessed by Abel's sacrifice and not with Cain's. And Cain got jealous and murdered his brother. He was not thinking about others. He was thinking about himself and his standing with God, and he was angry at his brother. So let us think about our lives with our brothers and sisters here in this room this morning. We may say about Cain, we may say, "Well, that's just it. Yeah, he murdered. It was wrong. I would never do it. I hope not." But do we harbor ill will or feelings towards one another as brothers and sisters in Christ? Don't answer that. I want you to think about this as a church. Do we get jealous towards one another? The pastor spent more time with us. It seems like they're the favorites. What is that? That's jealousy. Do we ignore people at church? Do we ignore them at church? It's kind of hard here at Faith Bible, especially in the hallway. When you're walking this one hallway, you have to commit to either ignore them or say hi to them. Now here, you can sit on one side and never see them. Or do you choose to purposely avoid them? Is that agapao love? No, it's not. And all of us in here, if we're honest with one another, we are guilty probably of all 4 of those sometime in our Christian walk. The pastor in the South gave this definition of biblical love. I'd like to read it this morning. He says this: "At its heart, biblical love is a commitment that is not without feeling. It is a caring commitment. In other words, biblical love involves delight, not just duty. Also, this caring commitment is not just an attitude, but it is an action. It shows itself in deeds." So let me ask you, when was the last time that you showed biblical love, just in our first point this morning, to someone here as a brother or sister in Christ? Was it out of duty? Or was it out of delight? You might say, what do you mean by duty? Like, I better do this because, if the pastor finds out, the deacon finds out, that's duty. Doing it because you feel like you have to. But if we truly love one another, as John tells us to here in this epistle, we will do it out of delight. Because why? We would give our lives for each other. Our second point this morning is this: Christian love fulfills the command of Christ. Christian love fulfills the command of Christ. Remember our first point, biblical love thinks of others first. Our second point, Christian love fulfills the command of Christ. Turn back to your Bibles to John 13. These are the words of Jesus. John 13. Verses 34 and 35. John 13, 34 and 35. Jesus tells us this. A new command I give to you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. Now let's just stop there a moment. He says, just as I have loved you, this is before Jesus died on the cross to show the ultimate sacrifice of love, but just in how he acted towards his followers, he showed his love towards them. In verse 35, he tells them this, by this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. See, Jesus told his followers, so John said it, of course he was a follower of Jesus. Here's Jesus' words telling us to love one another. See, it's a basic, fundamental practice in the Christian faith. And see, verse 35 there, he gives the world permission to judge us whether we truly love or are a follower of him. What's he say there in 35? By this, all people will know that you are my disciple. Listen, if you are truly a follower of Jesus, he says, the world's going to see that, and they're going to know, yes, you love one another, therefore you're a follower of Jesus. It's fundamental. You think of athletics, you think of sports, and all my life I've been involved with it, and I coached and then coaching little kids. And what do? So I'm coaching Mason's middle school soccer team. So what do we do with this past week? Guy comes out, and we were just practicing dribbling a soccer ball and passing. If you go to a professional practice, guess what? They're going to dribble and pass the ball at well above proficiency. But without the ability to do those things, will you be good in the game of soccer? No. So, and if Christians say, well, I know we're supposed to love one another, I get it. But understand this, believers. I don't think many of us, not as faith Bible, but us as Christians in the 21st century truly know how to dribble a soccer ball, meaning showing love to one another. The fundamental truth of Christianity is Jesus says, listen, people will know you're a follower of me if they see you love your brother and sister. Christian love fulfills the command of Christ. And just take a moment to evaluate your own life. This past week, have you reached out to a brother and sister? And let me take it a step further. Not just individuals that are in our own little clique, our own little sphere of influence, but brothers and sisters who truly need love. Think about it. Will people know you're a follower of Jesus by the way you love the brothers and sisters in Christ? I want us to look quickly of what early historians said about the first and second century church. The writer Caecilius said this. He lived in 210 AD. Here's what he said about the Christians. An unbeliever talking about Christians during the first and second century. They know one another by secret marks and signs, and they love one another almost before they know one another. The Greek writer Lucian said this about the early church. It is incredible to see the fervor with which the people of the religion help each other in their wants. They spared nothing. And he says their first legislator, meaning Jesus, has put in their heads that they are all brothers and sisters. And lastly, the church father, Tertullian, said this. He was a believer. He would say this about the Christian faith. It is our care for the helpless, our practice of loving kindness that brands us in the eyes of many of our opponents. They say, look, they say, how they love one another. Look how they are prepared to die for one another. This is what the world was saying about first and second century Christians in the early church. Let me ask you the question. Would the way that we love each other, could that be said about us? Are believers today fulfilling the command of loving, agapeo, one another in our world? Is Faith Bible Church fulfilling that command? Do we truly love one another? Not, again, in our severe incidents, but do we love those brothers and sisters in our church that maybe don't have a lot of friends. Maybe we don't know much about them. We truly love them. Our third point is this. Jesus' love is shown by his sacrifice. Again, biblical love thinks of others first. Second, Christian love fulfills the command of Christ. And thirdly, Jesus' love is shown by his sacrifice. Look at 1 John 3:16. By this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. The Holman commentary states this about this verse. I thought it was really interesting in studying, so I'm going to read it for us this morning. It says, we can understand what love is by looking at Jesus' example. And yes, we would all agree to that. He laid down his life for us. We ought to be prepared to do the same for one another. While the necessity of laying down our lives for one another is rare, the necessity of helping meet one another's needs is not. The true test of Christian love, of loving the brethren, is not about words or about what comes out of our mouth, but is the willingness to sacrifice for the sake of your brethren, to provide action to your talk. If you want a perfect picture of love, who do we look at? We look at Jesus. Look at the life he lived. He illustrated life. He illustrated love. He never showed hate or malice. He motivated people to love. He went out of his way to help those individuals who despised him. See, he crossed racial barriers, cultural barriers, geographical barriers. He reached to those people who were poor and helpless and needy. But the ultimate expression of his love is when he went to the cross. He showed his love to a group of people, humanity, who did not deserve love. Did we deserve his love? Did we deserve his grace? But he went to the cross anyway, to take care of the sin problem, which would have sent us to hell. But he took away the wrath of God because he came because of his love and died for us and for our sin so that we could know him. People who are unworthy of his love. Romans 5:8, but God shows his love for us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. See, Jesus showed love ultimately to a world that hated him. And sometimes, as we as a body of believers, we hold things against people that say, I'm not going to talk to them, they don't like me. There is nothing that someone has done to you in church that you can't love them. Jesus gives us that example. He died and showed love for us, people despised him and hated him. And what did he say on the cross? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And sometimes as a church, we can't even forgive our brothers and sisters in Christ. Real Christian love is expressed in our daily acts of service. It might not equal much, but when you put it together, it shows your heart and your love for one another. See, John tells us in his epistle that Christian love is personal. It is practical. John does something very interesting in verses 16 and 17. So if you look at that verse, he uses the word brother in two different ways. He uses a plural word in verse 16, that we ought to lay down our lives for our brethren, our brothers. Then he goes to verse 17, he uses singular, brother. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? He knew what we often say today. It's easier to love mankind than it is to love that man that lives with me. It's easier to love the world than to love my neighbors that live beside me. It is easier to love the church than to love the person sitting across the table, across the aisle from me. Let's be honest, there's some people that are hard to love. Those are not sitting beside me today. Maybe you thought you were marrying Snow White, only to discover she's the wicked witch of the West. Maybe you thought you were marrying Prince Charming, and you woke up next to Grumpy. There's just some people rather hug a porcupine or hold a skunk than be around. You're smiling, you're laughing, you're probably thinking of people right now. Again, hopefully they're not in this room. Maybe you can connect with the rivalry between Winston Churchill and Lady Astor. One day, Lady Astor said to Winston Churchill, "If I were your wife, I'd put arsenic in your tea." Churchill replied, "If you were my wife, I'd drink it." On another occasion, Lady Astor glared at the Prime Minister and said, "Sir, you are quite drunk." Churchill replied, "Madam, I may be quite drunk, however, you are quite ugly. I will be sober in the morning." We all have people in our lives. Yeah, just got that. His drunkenness will go away, their ugliness won't. So that's the punchline of that story. Pastor Mike laughed, so I think you got it. Here's the thing. I hope that there's not that rivalry within brothers and sisters. There should not be. If there is, then there's some serious issues with our heart. We don't wish death, as Lady Astor did. "I'm going to put arsenic in your tea," you know. I hope that that's not anything dealing with brothers and sisters in the church. So what does Jesus say to you? Those 4 letters that made millions of dollars in the 90s, what would Jesus do? Remember that acronym that we probably wore bracelets and had t-shirts and all that fun stuff? What would Jesus do? Well, here's what he would do, because he tells us what he has done. You love them anyway, right? You love them anyway. If we have the ability to meet a need, we meet it. We forgive them that hurt us. We do good to them. We bless them. Guess what? We pray for them. What did Jesus say through the Gospels? He says, love your enemies. Well, brothers and sisters shouldn't be our enemies. This is what Jesus commands us to do. Our love is shown practically by our actions. Here is the truth about loving family. It boils down to this. Do you sacrifice yourself, your energy, to help brothers and sisters in Christ? Do you give of yourself for that brother, that sister in church? Faith Bible, you have come so many times together and done that with people in the church. Continue to do so. But there are people that we need to reach out a little further, that maybe are left out, that need love. I would say, yes, there is. Let's look at 1 John 3:17 and 18 here. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? And here's John's words. Again, history tells us this is what he said all the time. Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. Ask yourself this question this morning. If people are judging our Christian faith on the basis of how we love, how are we doing? How are we doing? 1 Corinthians 13. You don't need to turn there. You can't turn there. I'm going to have the passage just here on the screen. Here's what Paul said about love. And many times this verse is used for weddings, and it does relate to some, love is patient, love is kind. But this actually was written to the church at Corinth. And here's what it says here in verse 1. If I speak in tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. And of course, here's the passage of scripture that we always know, we always read. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. I believe Paul saying in that first passage of scripture is this. When you read the list of things that he's talking about, listen, you can know all the doctrine, you can know all the theology, you can even give your life to the stake and burn, and give everything you have away. Be the good Christian that you think you are. And those things are important. Giving ourselves, knowing the Bible, knowing doctrine, knowing theology, knowing all those mysteries that we try to understand in Scripture, they're all good. But what's Paul saying here? But if we have not love, what's he say? I gain nothing. I gain nothing. So, as we close this morning, do we love one another? Do we care for one another? Let me just say something here real quick. We can't begin to love the world if we can't love each other. We can't begin to worry about out there and go love them if we can't take care of business here. Because the world is watching. Jesus gave them permission. If people see that you love your brother, they'll know you're a follower of me. So in your own personal life, do people know by the way you love that you're a follower of Jesus? I think this is a subject and a passage that we all, myself as I study, need to evaluate my own life of how I can do things better in loving the brethren in Christ. Loving our sisters in Christ. Is there something that we can work on? There's something all personally that we can take and say, you know what? I'm going to start doing this better. I need to start loving my brothers and sisters. There's people, and maybe in our church or in the body of Christ, that maybe I just rather hold a porcupine. We need to break through that because Jesus' example of dying on the cross for us who are undeserving. What other example do we need? Let's love one another. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all that you've done for us. Thank you for these passages of Scripture that teach us fundamental truths. These are things that we have been taught since we've been little kids. If we were saved at a young age, and we were in Sunday school and in church, we learned how to love one another. We were taught that. But Lord, we need to understand the practicality of it. This is just not in words, but it is in deeds, and how we act and how we respond to people is going to show those people that we are followers of you. May your love permeate us, and we be excited about who you are and what you've done for us, and share that with people as we go on to this week. But give us an opportunity to love on each other, to love the brethren, to help people in need when they need it, to love them and care for them. Because someday, Lord, we will be in heaven with you for eternity, worshiping you, praising you forever and ever. And we need to get along here in this world. Love you. Thank you so much for all you